So, hi, my name's Matt Purver. I'm a professor in computational linguistics at Queen Mary, University of London, which is one of the secondary supervisor hosts on the SMASH programme. And I'm also a senior researcher at the Jožef Stefan Institute, which is one of the primary hosts. I'm a computational linguist. I work in natural language processing, generally as it applies to understanding humans and human interaction.
Okay, and could you tell us a bit more about your specific research area?
Yeah, so I've been involved in lots of different projects in computational linguistics over the years, so it's slightly difficult to know exactly where to start, but most of the things I do are about trying to apply machine learning and NLP models to try and understand something about the people who are using language, and that's usually could be something to do with their mental states, trying to understand when people are excited about something, when they're happy about something, when they like it, when they don't like it. It could be applying that kind of thing to healthcare settings, trying to diagnose whether people are suffering from depression or anxiety and how severe that condition is. It could be something to do with moving on from that, perhaps trying to understand treatment processes, trying to look at the language that people use in therapy with people and work out when it's likely to lead to recovery or when it's likely to lead to worse outcomes. I also look at NLP as it applies to text rather than just spoken interaction. We do lots of looking at the text that tells you about societies and communities and people, looking at things like newspaper text, or social media text to try and understand people's opinions and people's biases and answer things like social science questions about whether people are marginalizing particular groups within society or whether, I'm going on too long, but social science questions and individual cognitive questions as they relate to language.
Okay, and where do you see the field of NLP headed in the years to come? So what is your idea of the future of NLP as a whole field?
Man, that's a really difficult question to ask now. If you'd asked me that kind of 3 years ago, I think I'd have found it easier to answer, and possibly if you ask me next year, I'll find it easier to answer. But right now, we're kind of in a position where the remit of NLP has become so broad, if you like, and it's become so central to lots of models that are used in so many different ways that it's slightly difficult to sort of put it in one box and talk about it in one way. And it's very clear that NLP models as foundation models have become sort of vital to lots of what people are doing in lots of data science, in lots of machine learning, in lots of different applications from healthcare to simple classification to organizing our lives to political research to kind of you name it. And that's going to continue, right? And that's pretty clear. You don't need me to tell you that, I'm sure. And the models that people are using are going to carry on getting bigger and more useful and more accurate and more capable. But I think the things that are going to be very important over the next couple of years probably are making those models multimodal, so trying to link up the understanding or the modeling of language with understanding of the world, of actual physical situations and the other data that tells you about what's actually going on that the language is related to or describing. So its use in things like robotics is going to, I'm sure, explode over the next few years. I think trying to link it a little bit more to the way the models are used by other researchers is going to become increasingly important. So building models that are better at explaining their own decisions, but also that fit better with the methods that other non-machine learning, non-AI, non-NLP researchers use. I think that the way the models are built and the way the interfaces to them are built are probably going to change rather to make them fit better with other people's practices and ways of working.
Okay, and also one extra question. So a bit more philosophical. So how plausible do you think are the claims about a possible existential catastrophe due to AI, including like the advent of how sophisticated NLP models? So do you think that they're like warranted, or do you think that they're like exaggerated? And of course, there are certainly some AI risks involved, but how do you see the scope of these AI risks?
So I'm not an AI philosopher, and I'm not really the best person to ask about this, but I obviously anybody who's working in this area has to think about these questions a little bit. I don't think I don't think it's fair to say that the claims are exaggerated or blown out of all proportion. Right? It's absolutely right to be worrying about these things and to think about these questions. I don't personally, from NLP models as they are at the moment, see a risk of that becoming models which are superhuman or other than in very restricted ways, or that are actually conscious. And so I don't see a huge risk from them. What I see a much, much bigger risk from at the moment is in the ways we are using them. So I think the risk really comes from us and the way we're applying the models, both applying them wrongly, trusting them too much, and trusting their outputs without really thinking about where their outputs come from or where the mistakes or the errors in their output might be, and applying them blindly. I think that's probably, of the sort of two risks there are right now, that's one of the really big ones. And the other one is really not understanding how they work in the first place, and therefore not really understanding when it's appropriate to use them and when not. But that's not to say that the consciousness and the catastrophe risk isn't there. I'm sure it is. I just don't think at the moment it's the main thing we have to worry about. I think there are really much more present and much more concerning risks to do with the ways humans are applying them that we should be occupying our minds with right now.